Eric Pace, the principal, is joining us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Thank you for being with us, Principal.
Hey, good morning. Good to see everybody, or hear everybody at least.
Nice backdrop. Go Lakers.
Yeah, thank you. Go Lakers.
So, you've been up and running for just over a week now. How are things going?
Oh, they're going well. So, we've been, our first day of school is back in August. The Wednesday, that was a week and a half before Labor Day. So we've been back for 2 weeks today. We Everything seems to be going pretty well. A couple bumps in the road, but students are engaged in learning. Teachers have been working, like you alluded to, all summer long to get ready for this. And, all things considered, I think we're off to a good start.
I know one of the big issues has been getting students access to the internet for the students that don't have it, and also getting them computers for those that don't have them as well. How is that looking right now?
It's looking really good. So, over the course of the summer, we had to make some predictions based on CDC recommendations and based on our governor's plan for return to make sure we were making the best decisions for our school, West Bloomfield High School and the West Bloomfield School District. So in early July, we made the decision to put the elementary and middle schools on a hybrid plan where they're in person part of the time and online part of the time, and go fully virtual at the high school level. And in doing so, we were able to get ahead of the large rush in purchasing for devices and for hotspots. So over the course of August, and even again this week through tomorrow, we've been able to assure that all students, it doesn't matter if they need one or not, but all students have access to a laptop device, and then any family who needs a hotspot has that as well. So we are fully connected for every student in the district.
One of the things that we saw this past week, storms rolled through, knocked out power to some homes. How is that going to be addressed with the schools when students are having an issue trying to connect, because attendance is taken now, correct?
It is, yes. So we are doing at the high school level from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. We have live instruction where students are actually on live Zoom calls just like this one with their teachers. But that only accounts to about half of their typical seat time in a class. So the rest is what we call asynchronous, where it's not done in conjunction with one another or with the teacher, but more independently. So in the event that we have power outages or connection issues, our teachers have updated every day and throughout each week, including before the weekends and so on, to have the asynchronous material ready. So whenever a student can connect, whether it be on a phone or a device, or whatever it is, they'll have work they can do independently that they can verify attendance with. So those hiccups should not get in the way of us counting attendance, because we do take attendance every day in every class.
Eric Pace joining us. He's the principal at West Bloomfield High School with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Eric, we recently talked to other school districts who are currently at a full virtual level all across the district, including their high schools. A couple of them, Walled Lake and Avondale in particular, are planning to go back to in-person learning, or at least explore going back to in-person learning after about the 10-week point into the school year. Have there been any discussions in West Bloomfield at the high school level about any sort of potential return to in-person learning or a hybrid system at the high school level in the future?
Yeah, we constantly have those discussions. There's actually one going on that started at 11:30 for all secondary principals and assistant principals in the district that I'll join after this interview. Our thought process is, if it's unsafe to have 1,800 students in the building today and nothing changes in 2 weeks or 5 weeks or 10 weeks, it still most likely won't be safe given the certain circumstances that surround us. We plan to follow the governor's phasing plan. So when we move to phase 5 in our region, we'll come back to full everyday, 5-day a week face-to-face instruction with all students. Now, that being said, if this extends to a point where we feel that virtual learning isn't cutting it, or we really need to look at the social and emotional health of our students and need to get them back, we will consider that hybrid option. It's something we talked about at length over the summer, but we couldn't find a way to maintain 6-foot distancing with half our student population in at a time on a rotation. So we're going to be learning from those buildings that have smaller class sizes, the elementary and middle schools, and then seeing if we can adapt in the future. The other thing we're going to look at is the timing with changes in semesters and marking periods. We don't want to put any students at a disadvantage by making adjustments too quickly or too late that impact how they're going to be graded or how they're going to learn within the classroom setting.
Principal Pace, you mentioned the social and emotional well-being of your students. What is being done to help them with any possible mental health issues that they may be experiencing during this crisis?
That's a great question. That's of great concern to us for our students and for our staff and our families. This is something that nobody ever anticipated having to experience in their lives, and it takes a heavy toll on your emotional well-being, not having the same social interactions that you typically would and the same supports that you typically would. So our district was forward thinking and hired a school mental health specialist, a licensed practitioner, and her sole responsibility is to build and provide supports for our students, whether it be in small groups, whole groups, or even individually. And for things like that, we're offering in-person opportunities because, again, our building's not closed. It's just closed to the large number of people. So when it comes to small groups or individual supports that need to occur, that's something we can provide for in-person. We're also providing families tools and resources for how to monitor social and emotional health, and then how to intervene or do things with their families that help promote positive mental health.
Eric Pace with us on the Oakland County MegaCast, joining us throughout the local area, all across the Oakland County area on the show today, including on Facebook via Facebook Live with West Bloomfield Park. So, Eric, recently the MHSAA reversed its previous decision regarding fall sports seasons after a modification of executive orders from Governor Gretchen Whitmer. They decided to reverse their previous decision to postpone football season until the spring due to health concerns, and await different regulations and determinations regarding the other fall sports. Will West Bloomfield continue with their fall sports seasons as regular now, and are there other plans in place based on what the MHSAA determined last week?
Yeah, so as you said, the MHSAA changed their decision. That's a direct relation to Governor Whitmer's executive order being adjusted. So we do plan to offer all of our athletic and extracurricular opportunities for students. There'll be some modifications. We've been going since June with all of our fall sports. So we have screening protocols that involve temperature taking, questionnaires, and then as much social distancing and mask wearing as possible within each sport. So there are times, clearly, like you mentioned football, where in football, you're not going to be less than 6 feet apart, and we understand that. So what we do is we practice in a way that limits athletes to small groups. Any warm-ups, stretching, or group activities that are large, maintain 6-foot distancing. They haven't actually put the pads on and hit yet. I believe that's coming tomorrow as the first day they can actually put pads on. And so, we're going to continue to monitor students very closely. And then we also have a coaching staff that firmly supports the health and well-being of students. So they've been adamant with their families and with their athletes about how they handle themselves outside of the football field or outside of the practice facilities, to make sure everybody stays healthy and safe. With our other sports, like, for example, swim and volleyball that are indoor sports, those were just reversed to be able to participate as well. And so with all of these activities, one of the big modifications is going to be that we have limited guests. Well, each athlete is permitted 2 guests to the venue to be a spectator, and we'll have a screening process for them as well to ensure that we stay under that limited capacity and we can socially distance appropriately.
Obviously, the big concern with sports as well as schools and students returning positive COVID test. What is your plan to address that if there is an outbreak?
So our guidelines are going to be that we're going to follow exactly what the Oakland County Health Department and CDC recommend. So in the event we have any positive test, even one, we will immediately notify the Oakland County Health Department, and then they will ask us some questions to be able to provide us the best guidance possible. So if it's a sport, let's say such as golf, you have an individual that tests positive, but that hasn't been in a 6-foot radius of somebody for more than 15 minutes per the CDC guidelines, then that person would be excluded and we'd be monitoring symptoms of others. If more athletes end up testing positive or exhibiting symptoms, then you may look at groups being shut down. So again, it'll be a right now decision based on the event itself and based on the Oakland County Health Department's recommendations. The best remedy for any of that is to encourage proper social distancing and proper behaviors outside of the athletic facilities to ensure that we're being as safe as possible once we are together.
The state of Michigan recently announced that it would start posting the outbreaks at schools on the state website. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm kind of torn on that. I've got two kids of my own. One of them just started kindergarten this year, and I've got my niece here. All three are doing virtual learning today. And that's the virtual background, and that's kind of the world we live in. So I understand the need for students to be virtual, and the students, if they're in person, to understand if somebody's sick so they can work virtually. On the other hand, it is a privacy issue when it comes to someone's health. So if it can be tracked down to like an individual student or classroom, I think that starts to infringe upon the privacy of those individuals and how they handle it. So, I'm torn on that, but I want to make sure that families have the information necessary to make good decisions for their own children and for themselves in a way that doesn't compromise the privacy and the safety of others.
Eric Pace with us. He's the principal at West Bloomfield High School, joining us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Eric, we've talked previously about some mental health services that will be available to students throughout this semester. In addition, they're likely going to want some consultation from their counselor to make sure they're staying on their academic goals, particularly for those that are upperclassmen and are getting ready to apply for higher learning and at a college level or going into trades. Are those services still available? Have those been modified at all, and how can students gain access to those?
Yeah, great question. We definitely have all those still available. We, as I mentioned earlier, do live instruction from 9 until 12:30, but the school day runs until 3 o'clock. So what we have after that is we have 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Our teachers have some drop-in office hours where students can come and get individual help and ask questions. And we also have time reserved for them to meet and consult with their counselors, whether it be the counselors reaching out to the families and students individually or vice versa, where the students need the support and assistance. In addition to that, we have Noelle Essig. She is our college and career counselor. She's a former college admissions rep, and so she has already done our Common App boot camp, where students can register and they participate in a virtual session on how to successfully fill out the common application and start working on their college essays. And then we have college visits from a number of reps from across the entire state and even outside of the state. So actually next week, we have our rep from University of Michigan Ann Arbor coming. And so our students can sign up and we'll have virtual sessions with those reps from all the different universities and colleges, so they can kind of get a feel for what those colleges are about and how to best set themselves up for application. So again, those services are going to be just as they were. You just have to transfer that to a digital world to maintain our academic supports and our progress toward higher learning.
So something I'm just curious about, how do you handle testing? I know this year attendance is required, so are they taking the test virtually or is it an online test?
Great question. The College Board is who manages the SAT, PSAT tests. They canceled the spring testing in April. That's mandatory for juniors throughout the state of Michigan. So now those are seniors that still need to take that test. That also canceled the tests for 9th and 10th graders, which are the PSATs, to get them prepared. So what they've done is they've moved that to a fall testing coming up here at the end of September and then into October. So each grade level and each test will have a different testing date, but they will occur in person at West Bloomfield High School. So what we've done is allowed families an opt-in where they can take that test. And then based on the requests that we have, we use staff and build rooms in a way that limits the number of occupants and provides maximum distancing. So we'll follow all safety protocols and have maybe a different testing environment than we're used to, or before you could put a large group in a gym or something like that. And now it'll be much more individual classrooms, small groups, and done in a way that limits the number of occupants at one time, but still provides them that opportunity to test.
Eric Pace with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. So you said that families can opt in to that in-person testing if families do not feel safe or students do not feel safe in that environment. Are they able to opt out of that testing? Does that impact their college application process at all? What's the status on that?
Yeah, so the state has relaxed the mandate that all students take the test for, it would be the 2019-2020 cycle that we're still in right now. So families can still opt in because they want that test, either the practice or the score itself. Many colleges are going to test optional at this point in time because they know access to testing has been very difficult. The non-school day tests have been really hard to get into or canceled outright. So that being said, a family can opt out really without penalty for the college admission process. Where they might run into problems, though, is with scholarships. There are a lot of scholarships and grants out there that still require a test score as part of their criteria. And so a lot of families will still opt in order to get tests in order to be eligible for those scholarships. That being said, once the fall is over, we do have a spring testing cycle that's anticipated for the 2021 year that hopefully, if all things go well and we're back in person, we'll be able to administer in April.
So many different issues to work through as we continue to navigate the coronavirus. Just a few more minutes with you here on the Oakland County MegaCast. Anything that we didn't touch on that you want our viewers and listeners to know?
Big one for me is, we're a couple weeks in now to the school year with virtual learning at the high school. We were all forced into it back in the spring and had to make an adjustment on the fly to transition to the virtual learning. And I think we were very successful in that due to the strong relationships that our teachers have built with students in the community that we have. We had tremendous support from our parents and our families and even our local businesses that really got behind us and helped us lead the way. That being said, we were also in a situation where there were a lot of hardships that families faced in a short period of time in the spring. And so some of the rigor or some of the accountability was a little bit more relaxed when it comes to student attendance and the expectation on daily learning in the class. And we really try to focus on the essentials, tend to the individual's social and emotional well-being, and then get them ready for this school year. Now that we have started a new school year virtually, we really have upped the rigor and the accountability. So in essence, we're going to mimic that in-person experience as best as possible in a virtual setting. So attendance for each class each day is taken and counts. There are appropriate grades, lessons, independent practice, lab experiences. And our goal then is when we move to phase 5 or we transition back to the high school, it is as seamless as possible without that gap in learning that many fear when it comes to having to work remotely as opposed to in person. So I know we made the decision early to go this route, and I think we put a lot of time and effort in the summer, our teachers especially, to really work to make this an experience that's valuable and meaningful for our students.
So is there a possibility that you won't return to the classroom this year, though?
There's always a possibility, right? Our intention is to be back as soon as possible. It's really going to be dependent on the phasing from the governor. So we're in phase 4 currently in our region out of a 6-phase plan. Phase 6 is post-pandemic, where things are as they always were, and we need to get to phase 5 to be able to bring all our students back safely into the high school. It's a delicate balance of safety and health versus education and emotional well-being. And we have to make sure we're being cognizant of all aspects of that.
So many issues to juggle, but you and your team have been doing an amazing job over there at the West Bloomfield High School. We appreciate your time here on the Oakland County MegaCast.
All right, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to get back to virtual learning with my kids.